Welcome to Wage Cucking with JMO.
Welcome back to an impromptu episode of Wage Cucking with JMO. So we pulled JMO out of his vacationing because he's got important work to do. And yeah, this
I'm
curve
invoicing
situation.
you guys for my time today.
Yes.
You need holiday pay, right? So I guess the
it's 1.5x, right? It's a 1.5x multiplier on my base pay.
Yeah, no, I'm really gonna miss all the quality. I mean, it's gonna come back, but I have been missing the quality sushi photos.
I'll get one out today.
Okay.
But yeah, I guess because obviously we've all seen you've been pretty active following this on Twitter, JMO, and yeah, we definitely thought the best way to go about this is, I know Andreas has been getting pretty deep into it as well, but Andreas, you can take it away and dive into what you want to know, and I guess what the people at home also want to know. I think that's a good way to start this.
Yeah, so I mean, I know the timeline, but I'm curious what JMO thinks about the timeline. So I think we'll just start in the beginning, which is somebody on Twitter announces that they found a bug in the Viper compiler, which is like a compiler to turn programming code into the EVM, smart contract machine language, an alternative to Solidity. And he doesn't reach out on the normal like security email, but he posts on Twitter. And yeah, so let's start there.
Yeah, I feel like so we're recording this like on the 2nd, right? This was, I want to say 3 days ago at this point. It feels like a lifetime, maybe like 2 days ago. I don't even know, but it feels like a lifetime ago. But yeah, this is like the first major exploit on Curve. Basically, the Viper compiler, a few versions of it. Each Curve pool is compiled using possibly a different version of the Viper compiler, right? So that there's only a few pools that were affected. The 4 main pools that were hit hardest were there are 3 Ethereum pools, like ALETH, which is the Alchemix ETH, the JPEG ETH, or the one that deals with collateralized NFTs. I think their ETH token is PETH, and I forgot the third one. And the 4th pool, which was I think the most important thing hit, was the Curve ETH pool. Basically, there was like a redundancy bug where you could basically
Reentrancy.
Reentry, that's what it's called, where you can basically if you mint LP there, you could withdraw it and then re-enter the pool, withdraw as well. So basically you can drain the pool of all its contents. So and I want to say like around 70 million was stolen. However, it's not clear. Like a lot of it was possibly front run by MEV bots. So we'd consider those white hat MEV bots, which means like that they would front run the transaction and return the funds. Some of it was like a large white hat rescue operation. Yeah, I don't know the exact breakdown between the amount stolen and the amount that ended up being white hatted. I know that there were some posts saying that the white hat operations was like a few minutes late, which I don't know, like I find a little suspicious. I don't know if you guys have a take on that, but it's like they execute part of a transaction, and then like the secondary transaction gets like front run by like a few minutes by like an actual exploiter. Yeah, so that was that. So like 70 million of LP directly removed from the pools. One other thing you mentioned that they reported on Twitter, that should be noted as like a terrible thing, right? Like if there's an exploit happening, you don't report it on Twitter and then we'll wait for people to like capitalize on the exploit. You can contact the relevant people involved and make sure that like
and you can contact anyone. You know, there's you could have DM'd Zach, you could have anyone.
Yeah. It's not like everyone's DMs are closed. Like you can find someone in crypto who knows someone who knows someone, and then you
could have DM'd you
information. Yeah, they could have DM'd me, and I could have gotten them in contact with like whoever. They could have DM'd you. They could have DM'd like any one of us, right?
Yeah, I would have
Um,
actually stolen all the money myself. I mean, I'm not that good at
maybe don't message Andreas. Maybe next time don't DM Andreas.
do not DM the shadowy supercoders. So,
yeah, go ahead.
I was thinking about this Viper thing. So, yeah, I mean, it's a bit sad because Curve didn't do anything wrong. It's a function of Viper that is supposed to help you from these re-entrancy bugs.
Yeah.
Which is actually almost all of the bugs in the original DAO, for those who are like 60 years and older can remember, were of this type.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe it's good that it was not a new type of bug.
Yeah, and as far as I understand, the newer versions of it, that bug was completely patched. It was just like the pools that were compiled using the older versions and never updated were exploited.
Yeah. Okay, so then, that's the reveal. And you also touched on MEVers. I mean, an MEVer with the name of Coffee Babe.
Coffee Babe.
Became, got a few hours of fame on Twitter and return funds.
Yeah.
And then we get to the next step, which is now a bunch of pools are drained.
Mm-hmm.
And this is affecting. I mean, I know you were looking at all of these pools, because if I have to guess, you're trying to calculate how much is lost to see how the market is pricing it, if you disagree.
Yeah. I actually ended up buying quite a bit of the Alchemix Ethereum. I felt that was like extremely underpriced. We probably don't have time to cover the dynamics of that today, but like it's an asset that was partially backed by the pool, but also that the protocol provided liquidity in the Curve pool, and I ran the math. They actually didn't lose that much, so I felt like that asset was underpriced.
And maybe they will release the actual final numbers, and then we can just go through those later, and you can compare with those.
Yeah, and I think the important things to note out of all of this before going forward is that the Curve TVL, the total value locked in Curve, was probably down like almost 50%. Only a small portion of it was actually exploited, but the remainder was people like exiting because they didn't trust the Curve protocols at that point, or there are some pools,
especially like stables.
Yeah. And there are also some pools where the pools were running the older versions of the Viper compiler, but there wasn't like an attack vector on the pools that anyone can figure out, but in theory that they could have been exploited. So Curve recommended to remove liquidity, so a lot of that liquidity was removed. Yeah,
I saw because this reentrancy bug was actually on a function that deals with the exact asset called Ether, which is only in some of the pools.
Yeah, because a lot of the pools use like wrapped Ethereum and like other variations of Ethereum.
Yeah. Okay, so. And this is when the price of Curve starts to take a drop. So what was the price of Curve before all of this? 70 something?
Yeah, it was something like that. I think it dropped like somewhere between 30 and maybe 40%.
It was up at 73 or 74 cents and then got to lows of 50 cents.
Yeah. And I guess this is where JMO starts to wonder, like, what is being backed by what? Like, what is being, I mean, you already did that with the other ones, Alchemix, but that's a bit easier. But then you get into the price of Curve falling, which is, then I guess you get into like, what is being used as a collateral for what? And should that get liquidated?
Yeah.
Then what happens to the price of what?
It's actually pretty funny. We talked about like the big Curve position that Mitch had in like the previous podcast, and his liquidation price was like around, I want to say 35 cents at the time. We talked about how like that was well out of range of any, like it was super unlikely that he was going to get liquidated. And then like it seemed like that until this exploit and the Curve price dropped, and now like a second wave of FUD basically hit. I mean, like I think he has somewhere around like 45% of the entire float of Curve, and like a decent amount of that is in basically 3 lending protocols where he's borrowing USD. and there's constant FUD by people. This actually annoys me quite a bit, but the people who have no fucking clue what they're talking about are like, he's borrowing money to buy houses. Like it may be true, it may not be true, but you don't know that, right? Like he could have money to buy houses and also be borrowing money to use the assets elsewhere. He could be extremely liquid, not be liquid.
I've seen photos of like, say, 50 million Australian dollars worth of houses, and that is very far from what he's borrowing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I guess you started looking at like what's affected by what.
Yeah.
Where did you end up with that?
So the first thing I looked at was like his positions on Chen, because like I feel like they're the most important positions. So he had three major positions out. The biggest one was on Aave. He deposited Curve and was borrowing mostly USDT, some USDC, and that was, I feel like that was relatively low risk because of the way Aave works, and because of like the dynamic interest rates. He's never paying like that much interest on his Aave positions. Well, I mean, now he is a bit, because like the utilization of, I guess we could talk about later, but like people are pulling their liquidity, so the utilization is up. But it was the biggest position, but it was like decently over collateralized, and I don't think that was really at risk. The other, I'd say the most risky one at the time was the Frax position, due just the way the Fraxlend works specifically. I actually learned quite a bit. I think Fraxlend is like fantastic protocol design. So there are a few things that Fraxlend does. The first thing is they isolate pairs, meaning like if there's bad debt that happens on like one borrow lend pair, for example, if the liquidation of Curve happens, it only affects that lending pair. The rest of the platform is safe from bad debt.
Is that different from the isolated collateral feature on Aave?
It is in a way, because the collateral can be lent out, whereas on Frax it can't. So like if you deposit collateral on Aave, collateral can also be lent out to counterparties, right? Whereas,
so they just literally don't have it.
Yeah, exactly. So the second thing is that the interest rates are based on the usage of the Frax. So if Frax is it's on like a log curve almost, where it increases heavily as the usage approaches 100%. So if every single last Frax is on the platform is used every 12 hours, at least in this pool, each pool I believe has like a different half-life as to when this happens. But in the Curve Frax pool, every 12 hours the borrow APY doubles. So it's a really nice protocol design, because if a situation happens like this, then like, for example, if he has liquidity spread off on like all three platforms, it incentivizes him to pay off the Frax position before any other position, because he knows that it's just going to constantly double and double and double until like he can't afford it. So if bad debt eventually occurs, it's not going to occur on the Frax protocol.
So that's would that become like a race to the bottom though if other people adopt this?
Yeah, and it's actually happening today. We could talk about it a bit later, but like his third other position was on Abracadabra. He was depositing Curve and borrowing MIM, and MIM, like today that they passed the governance book where they actually just completely restructured the fees to make it like basically impossible to borrow, basically forcing him to close, which, like, in my opinion, is kind of ridiculous. Like everyone knows he has this massive position open, and you're basically changing the term of the contract that he initially agreed upon when he opened the position. But I feel like that's another discussion. But at this point, it would feel like a bit of a race to the bottom.
Yeah. Okay, so that's on Fraxlend, and yeah. Now that you mentioned it, I remember. I guess it was sometimes before there were comments of Mitch doing some GigaBrain stuff on Frax, I guess, to deal with this.
He actually did some like very GigaBrain stuff on Curve yesterday. So he opened up a pool, like a brand new pool. It was Curve USD and the Curve Frax LP. So the reason the interest rates were doubling is because the Curve Frax LP was at 100% utilization, right? So he made his own pool on Curve, and he incentivized it with 100K Curve, and he was basically incentivizing people to deposit more LP into the Frax pool via the Curve pool, so that the more LP goes in there, the utilization drops. And then, like, because it's like a logarithmic curve, like, for example, if the utilization is 100%, it doubles every 12 hours, but if the utilization is like 85%, it only goes up like 1.1 multiplier of the previous rate. So it's a huge difference. So he was basically, he only needed to add like a certain amount of liquidity in the pool to reduce the multiplier substantially. So it made sense for him to incentivize it. So like I think he got around 2 million in liquidity in that pool, which reduced the utilization to 80%. And then, like, I think it
to 80%.
It reduces the Frax utilization 80%, which changes like the increase in interest multiplier to 1.1 instead of 2.0, which is like huge for his position. So it was like a very brain play, in my opinion.
So
I remember talking to you a little bit about it, but I looked at this pool and I was like, there's something that might go wrong here. I just can't figure out what it is. And I was like looking at like the dynamics of Curve USD and possibly that falling off peg, or it was just like it was too gigabrain for me to comprehend like exactly what the ramifications were. But it was definitely gigabrain on his part to introduce a pool like that.
It's just it's the gigabrain where the guy is sitting on a chair made of his own brain.
Yeah,
his brain is just so huge.
He's like playing chess with a portion of his brain on the other side.
Exactly. So yeah, because you were talking about Curve USD a bit, but you looked away from that. I mean, Curve is actually pretty understandable compared to Frax, which has Frax has like 15 different tokens with the same name.
Yeah.
But Curve USD, how come that's not affected?
I'm pretty sure that those are isolated and collateralized with like non-Curve assets. I don't think you can mint Curve USD through like actual Curve. Like you have to deposit like Lido ST or like Wrap Bitcoin or something like that. So I feel like in general, like it's a bit isolated from everything else. So yeah, I looked into it a bit and I couldn't figure, like it looked like I was thinking of figuring out a way to short Curve USD if I thought potentially that this pool would cause it to fall off peg, which would be basically to mint more Curve USD, sell it to like let's say USDT or USDC, and then if it falls off peg, buy it back and repay it. But I ended up not doing that because I couldn't figure out a vector where Curve USD would ever fall off peg.
Yeah. Okay. So then. And then I guess we should have anticipated this. Maybe you did, but then basically all of crypto Twitter, including like every influencer, they keep doing this. They start opening shorts on Binance. They're shorting Curve.
Yeah,
the Curve token on Binance.
Because they're shorting the perpetual contract.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which means, and if I remember correctly, on perpetuals, if you're on the side, same side as everyone else on the bet, you are paying all the funding rate to the minority. So, and also the funding rate will increase when it's very lopsided.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I guess you start seeing this because the open interest skyrockets on Binance. And I don't know if you actually opened a trade at that time, but you were talking about it.
Yeah.
Which was that you think they were all being silly because the price would have to fall a lot and Mitch would have plenty of time to act. And he has other ways to deal with this.
Yeah. And the amount of money. And the amount of money is, relatively speaking, is not that big. Like this is not like you can compare us to a Luna situation. Like Luna the bailout money for Luna would have to be like 100 times bigger. We're talking about like
Yeah.
multiple billions of dollars, like he's out of this and like this is somewhere between like 30 and 50 million dollars, and he's completely out of the situation. But
Yeah,
yeah, so
yeah.
I actually like tweeted I was like preparing like quite a bit of funds because I thought if a liquidation did happen and there wasn't enough on-chain liquidity for liquidation, you would find very cheap Ethereum. And the way the like automated market makers like the Uniswap V3 works right now is you could add single-sided liquidity within a range. So like if I wanted to buy Curve like at a dynamic range of, let's say, for 40 cents to 10 cents, which I thought was like a reasonable range for me to enter, I could just put that into a Uniswap liquidity pool. And if it ever got to that point, like I would, it would be like on a gauge where I would buy more and more as the price drops, right? So it's set up pretty well. The other reason why
You said you would get cheap Ether.
I would get cheap Curve. I would get cheap Curve.
Cheap Curve. Okay.
Yeah. But the other reason why a liquidation of his positions was especially bad is if you remember what happened in the Curve exploit, one of the major pools that was taken down was Curve ETH, right? So two things happens there. One, that there's suddenly far less Curve liquidity because like the Curve ETH pool on Curve is one of the major sources of on-chain liquidity for Curve. But the second thing is now this potentially black hat hacker has access to like something like $5 million worth of Curve sitting on his wallet. So
yeah, that's
there's some risk of him also dumping as well, and then like causing these cascading liquidations. So like I was basically preparing funds in anticipation of him dumping into like the open market, which like is already less liquid. And then
were you tracking the wallet?
Yeah, I was tracking the wallet. I don't think he even like moved the Curve. It's still sitting there. But yeah, I was tracking the wallet. But like I thought like maybe he would liquidate his position, which would cause a cascade in liquidations of Mitch's positions, which would really, really drive down Curve. Which this, by the way, I thought was like very unlikely to happen. But I just prepared funds just in case I could buy like 10-cent Curve.
Did you say you were able to do single side liquidity on Curve itself, or is that only Uniswap?
It's Uniswap. I'm pretty sure you can't do it on Curve.
I haven't looked on Curve. I think it balances it for you.
So the way Uniswap works is you can set like dynamic ranges. So you can basically set a range you want to provide liquidity for. You can concentrate it. You can make it like super wide, stuff like that. And then you can obviously set like these like outside ranges where you provide liquidity on one side, and if it gets to that point, it'll slowly build your position as the price falls or as the price goes up.
I was looking at that on Agni, which is a topic for the next podcast on Mantle.
Yeah, I feel like Agni has basically a similar thing. I think Trader Joe also, like they're on AVAX, they're on Arbitrum, also has similar features. So basically, I was prepared. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask though. So if you're preparing to buy it at 10 cents, then so you are thinking that there's like going to be some sort of bailout, or this is going to basically Curve will be saved. That's what you were thinking at the time.
Or you will get the Curve at 10 cents.
Yeah, I mean, like if all the DeFi protocols liquidations function like the way they're supposed to function, then what's going to happen is there's going to be like a cascade of liquidations. There's going to be like this huge red candle down. If you can like figure out where the bottom is and buy it up, eventually the markets will even out, because like the liquidations on these protocols can only happen in these isolated markets where there's like tons and tons of Curve markets. So then there's going to be people constantly arbing these markets, arbing like the perpetuals and stuff like that, to where like the price of Curve there's going to be a huge discrepancy in the price of Curve in all these markets when the liquidation happens, and it'll eventually even itself out. So again, I thought this scenario was like very unlikely to happen, but if it did, it would be very profitable. But I ended up like longing the Curve quite a bit anyways. I tweeted a little bit about the rationale. But basically it didn't make much sense to me. Everyone was shorting, and then like the open interest was getting like ridiculous. Like I think there was 150 million short interest at one point. People paying like negative 0.2% funding. Like that's like over 100% APY a year. Mitch was at that point was paying 50% on Frax, so like the shorters were paying like 6 or 7x times the short what Mitch was paying in interest. And the other thing I thought is like everyone's trading on like incomplete info, where Mitch and his team are trading on complete info, right? Because the more open interest that builds up short, the better it is for Mitch if he wants to pump his token. And all this is like out in the open. It's open knowledge. You can look at the open interest on all the exchanges. You can aggregate all the open interest. So the thing with like short open interest is they're eventual buyers of the token, because like the way short open interest is you open a short position, you eventually need to close it by rebuying the token at a certain price, right? So like I mean, I don't know what his thought process is, but in my shoes, I'd figure out how to get everyone on the other side of the trade short, make the funding rate insanely high, and then trap them all by executing like these deals or paying back the debt. And then you could be the counterparty on the trade, like just long the perpetuals. You have 100% of the information as to like when you're going to repay the debt or when you're going to settle these positions. Everyone trading is just like tweeting on each other on Twitter, like, "Oh, Mitch is fucked," and then like it didn't make much sense to me. So like at the point where the open interest in the funding got really high, I just like started like building long positions. And just because of that, it felt like it felt super unlikely at that point that there were just going to be like these cascading liquidations on Mitch's positions. And I don't know, like the other thing is a lot goes down if Curve goes down. Like Curve is basically the backbone of decentralized finance, I'd say. So there's a lot of people
because it's not a shitcoin casino. It's actual like coins that people use for things, right?
Yeah, and also basically every protocol is reliant on Curve, I'd say. Like if you look at like the 5 or 10 biggest TVL platforms across all of DeFi, like let's just look at all of them. Like the biggest is probably Maker, right? Maker, that they mint DAI, like the biggest DAI pools are on Curve. So like the biggest form of DAI liquidity is on Curve. Abra, the same thing. The biggest MIM pools are on Curve. What are the other one? Aave, like the biggest stablecoin pools are on Curve. Also, Aave has a unique incentive not to create bad debt on their platform. If there's these huge liquidations and they can't liquidate Curve, now suddenly like the Aave treasury gets fucked. What are the other, like for Frax, the same thing, that they have. For Frax has a back end through Convex which uses Curve LP. Like Instadap is one of the bigger bigger things on Ethereum, and they basically use both Curve and Convex LP. I guess you could talk about Convex as well. All these massive players in DeFi are reliant on Curve, and like the outstanding amount on these loans isn't that high, right? It's like you could have paid off the Frax position with I think like $15-18 million. The Aave position was a lot bigger. The MIM position was probably like 10 million, I'd say. So I mean, it's a lot of money, but like relatively speaking, like if Aave wants to like avoid bad debt, they could easily loan this guy some money with Curve collateral or execute OTC deals to prevent liquidations. So I just didn't see this event happening.
So that okay, so that's the you starting to long. And also getting a bit combative on the crypto Twitter virgins, like you call them, who were just all. And I thought it was very interesting because we've seen quite a few of these recently. It's USD is depegging, USDC is depegging, Curve is wrecked, Mitch is wrecked. We've seen many of these, and none of them have acted out. And I think every time you've said pretty early that it's like it's not falling down, it's fine.
Yeah.
So you've always been on the other side, which is I'm not an expert trader, but as far as I know, especially on perpetuals, like you would really like not to be on the side as everybody else,
Yeah.
especially
I
when
mean,
you're right.
yeah, like I think there are just like a few things I'm pretty confident in. One of them is like the major stablecoin providers, USDT, USDC, are like very solvent because like their business model is fucking amazing. So like
Yes.
it makes like very little sense for them to be like, but like what is
Yep.
the narrative with them that like instead of just making like $1 billion every year but
Every
doing
quarter.
nothing, that they're like gambling in Chinese casinos with the money? Or
Yeah.
I never really understand the the bear narrative for all of them. So like every time that there's FUD on those, unless something like dramatically changes, like anytime there's a deep peg on those, I'm always going to be on the other side of the trade, I feel. And like the whole curve thing is like, I don't know, like I just feel like curve is far too important to the entire Ethereum ecosystem, to the entire decentralized finance
Over like
ecosystem.
tens of millions.
Yeah, to just let it like die out, and to basically to kill like a bunch of DeFi protocols, to cause bad debt, to have shockwaves across the system over like a few debt positions that like I feel like are fairly easily covered.
And that brings us to the next one. So
Mhm.
because you were going for like the too big or important to fail narrative against all the CT virgins. And then
Shout out to all the virgins.
I mean, you did tell them.
Yeah.
I believe you used to face generational wealth opportunities. So that's
I did tell them. I actually, if you look at the timestamp for that tweet, I feel like that was the exact bottom. It was like
it was good.
It was basically like I think it almost hit like 49 cents or something on the perpetuals. It was like just over 50 cents.
And that's when, but then very shortly after, you were you were not proven right, but but I guess the narratives worked because I forgot how people noticed this, but basically, I'm guessing Mitch started sending Curve to people in lots of like about $3 million or tokens
He
per lot.
it was okay, so like I know the final number, but I don't know exactly how it played out. He sold
25 or something.
No, he sold like a little under 22 million. Or he acquired 22 million, a little under 22 million in stable coins for Curve.
Yeah.
And he sold Curve at like around 40 cents.
Yeah. So the blockchain human blockchain explorers, I guess they saw him sending the Curve, and then some of these addresses sending to, I guess they recognized very easily.
Yeah.
Justin Sun was speculated that it was him, and that he verified that immediately.
Yeah,
and
dude.
There's speculations
We should talk a little bit about Justin Sun,
we'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there.
He's amazing. I love Justin Sun.
And then there was speculation about Jihan Wu. I don't know. And then
I think Jihan had a position, like the Sifu, who is the
he was also approached him.
The Abra, what was it like? I forget his squad, the name of his squad, but Llama, maybe. No, it's not Llama. It's something Frog, for Frog Nation. That's what it is.
Danielle.
So a bunch of OGs and pretty big market makers, funds, I don't know, a bunch of individuals started receiving Curve from Mitch, and we figure out he's been selling at 40 cents.
Yeah.
And did that stop the pain?
Well, he was able to repay some of the debt, and then suddenly the Curve price started increasing, and the open interest, like people started closing out like open. I checked like. I actually, so like before I went to bed, I just closed out all my positions because I didn't want to like, I probably couldn't. I hate sleeping with like massive positions open. It's like waking up and figuring out if I'm wrecked or not. So I closed out all my positions. But the last time I checked, there was still like 90 million in short open interest, which is like still quite a lot. When the price was, I want to say like around 60 cents. and the funding rates had gone down, but like they were still like pretty negative. I think they were at like 0.05 or something like that. So yeah, like there was a lot of trapped shorts that were still paying quite a bit of funding there. Yeah, like I don't really know what else to say. It just seemed like kind of like, I mean, Mitch obviously has like he's probably been working all day to figure out these OTC deals. So like this was probably pre-planned. So I mean, I don't know if he did this, but again, if I were in his shoes, I would like line up all these OTC deals, not announce them, not execute them, just build up like this massive long position on Curve. Wait till the price, it drops to a certain point, and then just like announce these deals, like repay debt. Suddenly, all three of these debt positions aren't even close to liquidation. Then like the price stagnates a bit, like the price doesn't move, and then you still have all this open interest paying funding, and then like everyone's just sitting there like, oh, I don't know what to do. Like this is supposed to go down 50% in the next hour, but it's not moving. Shall I exit? And if they do exit, they're forced buyers, right? They're basically pumping the price for Mitch because in order to exit short, they need to rebuy the capital. So it just puts all these people in a bit of an awkward spot. And
I guess that goes like to what you were saying. Yeah, exactly. I said that was because you were talking about there's some information asymmetry here, because he knows how much they are shorting, but they don't know how much he can long and repay and benefit on two legs.
Yeah. And it's compounded by the fact that these idiots on Twitter are just like speculating. They're like, oh, Mitch is out of money. Mitch is broke. Like he doesn't have access to funds. He's selling off his like Lido tokens in order to pay. He's desperate. Like maybe that's true. Maybe that's not. But it's all speculation on their part. Where like Mitch knows exactly how much money he has. He knows exactly how much money like he's going to be able to repay. How much Curve he's going to be able to sell.
So basically, the CT virgin shorters, I guess they end up in a situation where they need to convince other virgins to join the trade so they can exit.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's an MLM. It's an MLM short. You need a base.
Do you think as well it's kind of weird that everyone keeps talking about these mansions, but they talk about it as if like that's the only asset he has in the world? It's like I don't, who's just gonna have two mansions and that's it? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like the theory that was going on, which made no sense to me, was he wanted to exit everything, but he didn't want to sell Curve because it would be a taxable event. So basically, he wanted two mansions. So he deposited Curve, withdrew USD, bought two mansions, and he was like just going to let the Curve positions and however they did. He didn't really care about the Curve. He just wanted the USD for mansions, which is like obviously ridiculous, right?
It's over collateralized by a lot.
But that was the prevailing theory. He's cashing out by doing this. Like he's exiting and everyone's like on their own. But like so that assumes that he's like a bad actor, right? He's okay with leaving bad debt on the platform. He's out of crypto. He's out of Curve. He's got his mansions, whatever. But like his actions in the past show that that's not true. Like he was actively attempting to pay down debt. If you just wanted to cash out and fuck off and you didn't care about your Curve, you wouldn't be like on your computer for like 20 hours in the day figuring out how to pay back these positions, moving collateral around. Like he was doing stuff that was like incredibly nuanced, setting up the Frax pool. He was also borrowing more from the Aave position in order to repay the Frax position, and because the Aave position was at a much lower interest rate than the Frax position. So like you wouldn't be actively doing all this stuff if you just didn't care and you just wanted a mansion, So like I felt there was far too much of it, and that was just like a level one theory that too many people had that didn't make any sense.
Also, another point is that literally, like, I was hanging around the Curve Finance Telegram chat, and for someone who's like trying to exit, he speaks quite a lot in a Telegram chat about his own project.
Yeah, really. I mean, he was on his computer for like 20 hours yesterday, I assume. So that's not he was definitely not enjoying his mansions. That's for sure.
He's you'll have to teach him how to do some proper mansion enjoyment.
Yeah. I'll teach him how to be a mansion enjoyer.
And, yeah, so we were talking about Justin Sun. So honestly, at that point when Justin Sun started using this as an opportunity,
Yeah.
that's when I logged off. But I guess you can continue with how Justin Sun makes money from everything.
I saw a tweet. So someone was saying like anytime that there's like a tragic event in crypto or some drama, Justin Sun's like there with like his umbrella, like shielding everyone, but then also like selling them shit on the other side. But
it is really amazing.
I haven't looked into this at all, but from what I understand, Justin Sun has like a new stable coin that's backed by real world assets, and he somehow parlayed the Curve bailout or the Curve purchase into having his own Curve. He's going to like work with Curve to have his own pool to promote his new stable coin. That's what I understood from it, but I'm not completely sure if that's correct. It's called like STUSDT or something like that.
Yeah. Even very confusing here. What does it take to get a Curve pool?
I'm not sure. I mean, I know they have like Curve factory pools, which like are, I feel like they're experimental pools, but I'm actually not sure of the process as to the who can launch a Curve pool and who can't.
Yeah, I mean, you can see there's not that many, so I assume they're pretty.
Yeah. I feel like you can't
strict.
just set them up yourself.
So,
okay, then yes, go.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in. I think there was you posted a thread, JMO, with a few questions from the audience, which I thought it would be
good to
get through.
Let's look at the questions. I'm excited.
Yeah, so let me just pull this up. So I guess one of the interesting ones. So if the liquidation is triggered and these protocols accrued bad debt, what do you think like the market and chain wide implications would be of that? If the worst case scenario happened, like, do you think it's game over, or how would it play out?
It would be very bad for Aave. I think it would be kind of bad for Frax, and it would be kind of bad for Abra, but I feel like it'd be really bad for Aave because Aave has by far the biggest position. The Aave position, I checked last night. This was after he got like the bailout and he paid it back. He had 160, the equivalent of like 165 million in Curve, and he had like 70 million in stable still outstanding. The Curve, or sorry, the Abra position was like 30 million in Curve, like 13 million in MIM, and the Frax position was something like 25 million in Curve and like 8 million in Frax. See, he was like, again, the Frax design is amazing. Like he was heavily incentivized to pay down that Frax position. So Frax wouldn't have been impacted. Abra a little bit more, but the issue with liquidating 160 million Curve, or I mean, it would be way less at the liquidation point, but like that much Curve was like Aave would end up with quite a bit of bad debt. And I mean, the upside is I think Aave has a pretty big treasury, and they can also just like market sell Aave, I guess, as another method to cover the bad debt. But it would be pretty bad for DeFi as a whole if like both Curve and Aave, like two of the biggest protocols, two of the most trusted protocols, take these massive hits and all in one go.
And there's another one here as well, which I guess follows on quite nicely. So obviously it seems like from what you discussed so far that there seems to be a plan here. But if you had to guess, like what are the odds you think that Mitch goes broke at this point, or do you think people have no idea?
Again, I'm speculating, and everyone else is speculating, even though everyone else, like, if you listen to them talk, that they think they're like either 100% sure, 100% not sure. I was fairly confident he was going to go broke maybe like 12 hours ago, but the actions today, I think, make it a bit more likely, just because, like for example, the Abra thing, they basically we're targeting him in a governance vote to increase the rates to make sure like he's paying like $100K a day until he closes the position. If he can't close the position, I mean, like the positions are fine. Like he can keep them open indefinitely as long as the interest rates aren't high, right? Like if he's paying like single digit interest rates on all of them, then it's like whatever, right? But if they suddenly skyrocket to like 100% or higher interest yearly, then he can't keep the positions open for very long. So he needs to close them. And if he can't find liquidity to close them, then he gets fucked. So it's mostly dependent on like how badly these protocols want to fuck him. The other thing I found interesting was Justin removed 40 million, I believe, in USDT from the Aave pool, and that directly impacts him because the way Aave works is the rates you pay as a borrower are dependent on the amount of assets left to borrow. So if liquidity is removed and like the majority of liquidity is tied up, then you're paying a much higher interest rate. So like by doing that, Justin is making Mitch pay a higher interest rate on his Aave position.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, because I noticed the interest on stables went to like 60% plus.
Yeah.
So then Justin can just take his money. He can just take that USDT and just put it somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Temporarily.
Well, he took the US. I don't know what he did with it, but I just noticed
buy more
Curve USDT. I don't think he's buying more Curve. I mean, he already bought. Okay, I feel like also that's the other thing. So the Curve that was sold OTC. I think there was like a handshake agreement for a 6-month lock, but it was like distributed. Like I feel like it was sent to all participants. So I think like there may be like 10 OTC counterparties that like agreed to the same deal, but I feel like it might have a domino effect because like
I was thinking if one guy sells.
Right, because if one person, just one of the 10 counterparties violates the 6-month lockup, everyone else in the deal is like, well, this guy's front running our sell orders. We're gonna violate as well, and suddenly you have like this everyone attempting to front run each other. So
absolutely,
I feel like that might be a pretty big risk. Although I don't know what % chance that actually happens. But the way the OTC deal was done, it seems like it wasn't sent to like a contract address or like a third party address. It was just like, we're going to send you these coins, just promise you're going to hang on to them for 6 months before selling.
And I mean, that's like DeFi maturity. Imagine, I mean, if they had access to a contract where you can just say like, make a new vault, it can be transferred from this person in 6 months, click, and you trusted it, like on Open Zeppelin, you would do it. But like, we don't have that.
Yeah, but the other thing is, I feel like
there's no time.
Well, the other thing is like there's utility to holding Curve, especially if the funding rates are high. Like you could hold Curve, provide liquidity somewhere. Like people are looking to borrow Curve to short still, right? So you can have Curve, use it as a liquidity position, but still hang on to the Curve. Whereas if like the Curve is escrowed somewhere, like you lose the net utility of having all this Curve you just purchased.
Right, but that's the point of the escrow, isn't it? Like you don't know. Otherwise, that person is. Yeah, I see what you mean. If you're utilizing it, then
if you're the point of the escrow is to prevent you from selling, right? Because that's the agreement. But if you're utilizing as liquidity instead of selling it, like, but it's impossible to differentiate because like I need to trust you to not sell, but to only use it for liquidity. So it's a tough spot. I don't know if there's like a way to code something where you can like use it only as liquidity, but you can't like.
No, you're lucky. I just literally thought of one. You just added a restriction. You make a contract that can move these tokens, and it sets the rules. So it will, for example, let you transfer the tokens to Curve. But there must be some. But then you need to know.
I see.
But then you need to know that Curve cannot withdraw the tokens to another. So you basically have like there's like a nanny, like a guardian that is watching the tokens, and you can ask the guardian to do actions, but it only lets you do certain ones.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or it can also be approved by the person opening the lock.
That's pretty tough to spin up in like a few hours, right? Or
I would say so. I would I would make it so you can transfer the tokens within in 6 months, but before then you can 2 out of 2 multisig to do something else with them.
Yeah,
where
yeah,
Justin
you
would
can do
agree.
that. Yeah,
But also we're gonna find this.
yeah, and you have to figure out like the exact multi-sig setup. Like you have to do it 10 times, right? Because you have 10 different counterparties or how
Yeah.
it is stuff
No,
like that.
it's but I mean we are in that sense we're still quite early, right?
Still,
What was my question? Yeah, when somebody steals the Curve tokens, then you get into this thing like, are they gonna sell it? When are they gonna sell it? Does that matter? Or did we just have or did we just onboard a new Curve user?
Yeah, a community member. We got a new community member on board.
Yeah, exactly. Just like join the Discord.
Yeah. I feel like I don't know, like I feel like if you're a sophisticated hacker and able to pull off something like this, you're not going to just like go to the open market sell your Curve with like 50% like price impact or whatever it is.
Why would you not do that?
I mean, like, because like, I mean, I guess you could do that, but that would cause chaos, and then like you would also still have to exit your Ethereum or your stablecoin position, whatever you're selling into. Whereas like you could potentially negotiate with the protocol. Also, I mean, like I'm not sure if this is true anymore, but there's some chance that it's like a white hack that's just like figuring out like the optimal way to return the funds, stuff like that. So that was definitely an unknown with like that 5 million Curve sitting in like a new wallet and just watching it, figuring out like what was going on with that. That was definitely a sweat.
And we've seen many times in the past where the attacker goes like, now what do I do? And they're like, hey, just kidding. I was on vacation. I'm the white hacker. I'm gonna return all the funds. Can I get a bounty? Just completely freak out.
Yeah, or if like some on-chain sleuth like finds out like that, you know, they funded the wallet through some doxed address like a long time ago, or that they doxed themselves online, and suddenly that they're a doxed public figure, that they may rethink just like market selling and then trying to tornado cash it all out.
Yeah,
it's kind of a good strategy, really, though, isn't it? Just wait until the sleuths have had a look, and if you see anything that's like going to give it up, then you kind of your decisions are being made, right? Yeah.
Okay, that's everything I had that is completely relevant. I have many questions that we're not going to fit today, but I think
were there any more Twitter questions? I actually didn't even look
let's
at
hear
it. Yeah. So okay, there's a couple more. I saw a funny one that was deleted that you replied to with, got anything interesting to discuss, or just smooth braining it? But I don't know what it was because it's been deleted now. But we have so what do you, I mean, this is tough, but what do you think the fair market value, the fair market cap of Curve is without the liquidation risk? So any thoughts on that? It's tough to say, but
it's probably the same that it is right now, right? Like I don't think it's that much higher, that much slower.
But without the liquidation risk, wouldn't you just say it is whatever it was before? This happened.
No, it would be less, because the value of Curve definitely decreases after the Viper exploit, right?
Oh, I meant before that.
Well, what do you mean?
Oh, I see. The exploit has already happened. There's brand damage.
Like without the liquidation, or assuming Mitch doesn't have any of these positions, but the Viper exploit does happen, then the value of the Curve definitely should decrease, because the not only did their protocol get like exploited for a lot of money, but the trust in the protocol is obviously down, as you can see by the TVL numbers. So the volumes are down, the TVL is down, the token should be down by some percent. Also, like all these like crypto valuations are kind of like bullshit anyways. It's you can't really look at like the metrics of, you know, my protocol generates like X amount of money, it should be worth like Y amount. It doesn't really work that way. In my opinion, basically everything is overvalued, but you know, like as long as people are buying it, then it's at its proper market value, right? So everything
except from Bitcoin is overvalued.
Yeah, everything's over. Maybe Ethereum. I don't know.
Ethereum's
Maybe Ethereum. I think Ethereum's also probably still a little overvalued given how close it is to like collapsing these days with all these like bullshit things going on chain.
That's all the time we had, right?
Yeah, and I think that kind of covers it. But cool.
Nice.
I feel like you got it. There was a lot that got through that. There are a lot of
Yes.
stuff worked through that.
Yeah, and it's still like an ongoing thing, right? Like I'm not going to be shocked at all if like I go out tonight and I come back to my computer and there's like more drama going on. Good curve prices moving one way or the other. We're either like squeezing or we're close to liquidation and Mitch is OTCing more, or suddenly Justin Sun is dumping curve. Like who knows what's going to happen? Anything can happen.
I think the only thing we know for sure is that there's going to be more drama.
More drama. I'm actually loving the drama. I was talking to one of my friends about like he's like a casual crypto enjoyer, and I was telling him crypto is lit these days. Like everything is going on. It's just like so funny and exciting, and like it's a lot of fun.
Cool. All right, guys. Guess that wraps it up. Yeah. Thank you, JMO, for interrupting your vacation, and we're excited to have you back at the office.
Yeah, no problem. I'll send you guys an invoice for this hour of my time, and I'll see you next week when I'm back to wage cooking.
Okay, enjoy.